Hey everybody, what has become a bit of a tradition now, we're doing a live on-site podcast from Commsverse. Rishi, who many of you will probably know, we've been talking about doing this for a while and it's taken getting in person to do it, so appreciate you taking the time. And for those who don't know you in the community, Rishi, you just introduce yourself and your role at Logi.
Absolutely. So I am the Director of Alliances and Go-to-Market at Logitech, and one of my primary responsibilities is to oversee our partnership with Microsoft across co-innovation, co-marketing, co-sales, essentially every aspect of go-to-market.
Awesome. And we're definitely going to talk about some of the stuff Logitech are doing, but you have a really interesting perspective on the industry. You're pretty plugged in. Every time we have an AI conversation, you bring something up around that. But also Logi have lots of different customers on lots of different platforms. So you've got a perspective of what everybody's doing, not just Microsoft. And with that in mind, what are you seeing in the kind of AI landscape?
Yeah, so, firstly, it's an exciting time to be alive. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, and we have frontier labs IPOing, and there's obviously some hype there. On balance, it's also graduation season, and we're seeing a little backlash when it comes to the commencement speeches. So, there's a lot to look forward to. There is, I would say, also justified anxiety. But the truth is always somewhere in between. I mean, we all believe that AI is going to make our lives better. For those who have 9-to-5 jobs, clearly there is a lot to gain from the productivity aspects of AI. And, there've been some exciting developments. We've had upstarts like OpenClaw that have really opened everyone's eyes to what is possible.
In like 6 months as well. It feels like every less than a year, there's something happens in AI. We went from kind of basic models to reasoning to the claw models. Like there's still a lot of innovation happening.
Exactly, and everyone, especially if you're in IT, for you it's about how do I bring this at scale to my organization. And so we at Logitech, of course, work with all the leading video conferencing platforms. And Microsoft is one of those leading platforms. So they have Teams and Teams Rooms. And of course, we'll get into their AI offerings as well. Mm-hmm. But what we've seen is that clearly meetings and the recap of meetings has emerged as one of the top use cases for AI.
Yeah, I think Microsoft has said multiple times that is the biggest use case in terms of compute and usage and adoption, because everybody has that problem with lots of meetings and everybody wants the summaries and the insights.
Exactly, and it's one of those things that doesn't require, as an end user, there isn't a steep learning curve. You just hit record, or you go back to something like Copilot, or maybe you have a Teams Premium license and you just get your beautiful recap. In fact, now they've even rolled out video recaps, which I personally love, because in 2 minutes you can get a recap of an hour-long meeting, right?
And custom recaps as well. So now you can set your own prompts, because I actually like I don't deal well with walls of text, so I want like short bullet format. That's the best thing I get on. So customizing it per user is really
There you go, right? So it doesn't require a steep learning curve. You start seeing the value of AI immediately. But again, coming back to the IT owner who has to deploy this at scale, I think one thing that has been a realization for me is that it's a daunting task, right? So, there have been other, Anthropic came up with Claude Cowork, which is also super disruptive, but a little more safer, I would say, for an organization that has been exposed to OpenClaw, right? Like OpenClaw might be great for an entrepreneur, low stakes, but for an organization, it might be Claude Cowork. But then you take that one step further with Microsoft, the approach, they've got what they call work IQ, which is, they have established a data boundary with you. It's your emails, it's your documents, it's your PowerPoint presentations and spreadsheets, and there's some institutional knowledge there, and they build that trust with you. They're working with you on compliance and all those things. Whereas if you go with an approach such as, say, Claude Cowork, you're going to have to rely on connectors. Yeah. So as an IT individual, you have to, think about the trade-offs. And I think that's why what Microsoft's doing is very, very interesting, because they're trying to bring the best of these emerging AI technologies into a paradigm that's readily scalable for you as an IT person.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. It's really interesting. I've never seen Microsoft move so fast. So like Cowork is a great example. Like Anthropic did it. Microsoft partnered with Anthropic. Shortly later, we had Cowork in the M365 suite, and now it's GA.
Yes.
In months. And OpenClaw, they've got their version of Scout in preview.
Exactly.
They are moving at an incredible pace. But to your point, they're trying to do the enterprise safe, sanctioned, secure version of that innovation.
Exactly. And when it comes to deploying at scale, I think IT folks will realize that they're best served through, especially if they're in an M365 environment, by adopting what Microsoft is bringing. And I believe they've now packaged it in what they're calling the E7, the Frontier
Yeah,
suite.
that's their suite with the Agent 365 with the extra intro tools. So, but it's interesting how fast it's all moving.
Right.
And I hear the same thing in enterprise. Like you'll hear individuals get excited about ChatGPT or Anthropic. Microsoft's job is to kind of keep up with that level of excitement, but have the IT Pro, enterprise safe, compliance version of that technology.
Right. And then there is also the spectrum of use cases. So clearly, on the productivity front, we talked about meeting recaps. Hey, very, very, limited learning curve there. But then when you come to agents, right, there is some work to be done before individuals start, getting comfortable with the idea of creating their own agents and deploying their agents and learning to trust agents at times working autonomously. So again, I think that's where this boundary of trust that is created in the Microsoft 365 environment with their tools is very, very beneficial. There is this now, the new role of the forward deployment engineer, right? Which is, it's needed because it's not so easy to go create the infrastructure, the right connectors, the right use cases, and there are some risks, which is why you do need a role like this to be deployed with the company. But I think it becomes all that much easier if you're doing it within a trusted data boundary, right? So I think that's, again, something that IT folks, they can take solace in the fact that, okay, I'm creating some autonomy with agents, but at least I'm doing it in the secure boundary that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, with the vendor I've already said I trust my data with.
Absolutely. And then, it's an exciting time for Logitech because from our perspective as the leader in both video conferencing hardware and personal workspace solutions, we've had a long and fruitful partnership with Microsoft. It's been over 40 years since the days of creating peripherals for Windows-based PCs, and now in the recent 10 years with video conferencing.
Yeah, you were right at the very start of the Skype rooms, Teams rooms journey, and as you say, leading player in that space today.
Yeah, and what's exciting is that we get to be the eyes, the ears, and at times, the brain, which is, with all the edge compute. And there are so many use cases still to be solved for. So Ilya had his keynote at Infocom last week where he talked about facilitator room skills, right? So this is kind of a callback to a time when you had a host in video conferencing spaces to make sure it was tidy, all the equipment was working. And now you can start bringing some of those skills to the meeting room by virtue of the fact that you can use the camera sensor, you can use the audio. Logitech creates a sensing device called Logitech Spot, which can sense the temperature, the CO2 levels, and a few other environmental characteristics. So that also allows things like understanding, hey, what is the state of the room? Is there a better meeting spot? Is this meeting space being utilized as much as it could, because it also has presence detection. So I would say it's just an exciting time for us because there's so many use cases to be solved for, and just excited to be partnering with Microsoft. And the last thing I would say is that Microsoft has been quietly winning at AI. There's a lot of hype around obviously some of the newer companies and the frontier labs. And I would encourage everyone to look into a Wall Street Journal interview with Satya Nadella. I think it just came out a day or two, where he talks about how, value is going to be created in various areas, and we obviously can't allow some of this hype and to take over. And then Brad Smith, their president, also published a recent blog that was very interesting. It takes kind of the more humanitarian side of like, hey, how should we be reacting to AI, and how is it going to enrich our lives? And
this is what I mean. You're really on the every time we talk, you're really on the pulse of what's actually going on and have a hand in it. And you mentioned work IQ. I want to come back to that because that feels like Microsoft's secret sauce. So when you say Microsoft are kind of quietly winning, like that data layer, and because they have teams and they have Teams rooms and they have places, it allows Logitech as a partner to, like you say, be the eyes and ears. And I don't think many people will have seen the Ilya keynote yet. We did a speed edit of it. We'll link to it. But like the idea that the camera room and the speakers can be like, is the room tidy? Is the room prepped? Is the room working? But even the AI starting to be able to contribute. So, how do I join a WebEx meeting from the Teams room? He showed the idea of holding the phone up with the meeting coordinates.
Exactly.
The camera just being able to be like, I've got the meeting coordinates, I'll join the meeting.
Yeah.
And it's that partnership of kind of the Microsoft and the partner ecosystem that brings that to life.
And it's exactly use cases like this. So first of all, Microsoft is solving for these enterprise use cases. Also, their approach is very interesting, right? Because clearly, they have partnerships with OpenAI, they have partnerships with Anthropic. So they're taking a multi-model approach, right? So they've hedged their bets. They're obviously developing their own
the
models
stuff,
and some small language models, etc. And again, what is interesting is that there's been a revelation in the industry, especially with Anthropic doing better these days, that, oh, wow, the money to be made is on the enterprise side. Well, Microsoft knew that all along, and that's why I say they've been quietly winning. I don't remember the exact numbers, but if you look at their latest earnings report, it is quite astounding how quickly their AI business has grown, which about 2 years ago was close to zero, and I think it's maybe north of 50 billion. Don't quote me on that, but check it out for yourself. So what seems like a revelation for OpenAI and Anthropic has been what Microsoft has been very quietly doing really well, because they've always been, for enterprise. And that's where now Anthropic and even OpenAI with their, I believe it's called deployment company, are learning those hard lessons.
I feel like it's like a lesson that companies learn time and time again. They're like, we'll build this amazing product, and obviously the enterprise will understand how to use it.
Yes.
And then you see this 3 years later, they're like, oh, turns out we need load of consultants and business change to get people to understand.
Because the value is clearly there, and unlike software where there's a huge demand side economics. You create once, and then every time you sell software, there is no incremental cost. With AI, there is a very significant incremental cost, right? And of course, all of these companies are infrastructure companies now because they have to stand up their own infrastructure. So essentially, AI generated memes and images is just not going to do it. You cannot be a profitable, successful entity doing that. So that's why I keep going back to Microsoft has been quietly winning. They've had the right strategy since the start. Yes, there's hype out there, but if you're essentially an IT and an M365 shop, you're very well served by exploring the solutions that Microsoft's bringing to market.
Yes. And what's your thoughts, Rishi, about AI on the edge or in the room? Because it feels like that, certainly look at what you're doing with multi-camera, we're going to have more AI doing clever things on the edge, be it direction, be it camera control.
Yeah, so sticking to the theme of quietly winning, Logitech has also quietly been winning with AI on the edge, because we've been working with AI back when AI was sexy or mainstream, right? So, simple things like we launched a product called the Rally System, I want to say close to 9 years ago now. And, you could do up to 8 mic pods in the room, and each of them had, up to 7 mic pods, each of them had 8 beams forming and sub-millisecond accuracy for noise cancellation. All of that is happening because we put AI on the edge. We have a lot of these models that are running on the edge. We're doing the same with computer vision. So, of course, we understand that the cloud is expensive. It's not, and if you're following the news on, all these infrastructure build-outs in the US and other places, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of energy requirements. So the more you can put on the edge, the better. And some use cases just make sense. You don't want to do a round trip when you can do certain things in sub-millisecond accuracy.
I did at the boot camp, I had a session with Irina, which we put on the site, and we were talking about that. She owns the rooms and the room management, and saying how much value there is of having AI on the edge. Certain things that are just better to do on the edge, and certain things are great in the cloud, and it's going to be a partnership of picking the right things to do and where.
Absolutely. And that's why we're so excited about working with Microsoft, because there is a plethora of things that still needs to be done, and some of it is going to be done on the edge, and clearly some of it, there's value doing it on the cloud.
Awesome. Well, Rishi, thanks for catching us up. I'm glad we finally got this on the record. Appreciate all the support of the community and the partnership.
And appreciate what you do, because everything is moving so fast. So, our audiences need to be kept up to date on what's new and what's worth looking at.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.